Good morning. It's Art Tip Tuesday. And today we're going to talk about photographing your art using only your phone. In another life, before I was an artist, I was a professional photographer. And I have a whole bag full of expensive equipment that I don't use when I'm photographing my art to put on social media. Now, if you want to take photos of your art to possibly make prints and you need high resolution photos, that's a whole other topic. But today we're going to talk about photos that you can use on social media, and I even use my photos from my phone for my website. So we're going to talk about three things today. First of all, I'm going to give you some tips for taking good photos. Then I'm going to show you some quick little edits that you can do right inside your phone. And then I'm going to talk to you about my little system that I use to keep track of my art in the Photos app on my phone. Now, I will give you a disclaimer to start with. I use an iPhone and I don't speak Android, so there may be differences in your Android phone, but I'm sure it's very similar, and these are kind of basics, so I'm sure you can figure it out. And if you're stuck, you can always go to the Google and ask questions there because, Google knows everything. So let's start with talking about taking good photos of your art. Your goal when you take a photo of your art and post it on social media is to give the most accurate representation of that painting or that piece of art that you possibly can. You want it to look its best. The number one thing that you need to keep in mind for good photos is good lighting. So what makes good lighting? Well, natural light, first of all. Flash is a no-no. The light from your flash is harsh. It's not natural. It doesn't make us look good. It doesn't make your art look good. So you want to find good, soft, natural light. Maybe you have windows in your house or a door and you have some nice, beautiful lighting in your home. If so, you're very fortunate. But what you want to look for is diffused light. You don't want sharp, harsh, bright sunlight to take your photos. So time of day plays into that. Obviously, midday is not a good time, especially if you're outside, which we'll talk about in a minute. So, take a look around before you get ready to photograph and pick out a spot with some good lighting. If you have bright light coming in your windows, maybe you want to put a sheer white curtain over it or a piece of fabric that can soften and diffuse your light, so that gives you nice photos. If you don't have a good location in your house, like me, then you need to go outside and find a place to photograph your art. Again, time of day is really important. Midday is not good. There's no good place to take a photo midday. You want to find a place with some soft shade, solid shade, not modeled like you're under a tree in the shadows of the leaves, because then you're going to have funky little shadows in your art. And you don't want really dark shade, because that's not going to give you accurate color in your photo. Right inside your garage door often is a good place, or in the shade of your house might be a good spot to give you nice even shade. Light has different colors. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. If you're not, start noticing. If you think about in the evening right before sunset, that golden hour, how pretty and golden the light is. It's lovely, but you don't want to photograph your art in that light. It's a very warm light. On the other hand, if you're in deep dark shade under a bunch of trees, then that light is very cool and it has kind of a bluish cast, and you don't want that for your photo. You want it as natural as possible. Actually, a day with a cloudy sky is a perfect day to go out and take photos of your art. You can do a little bit of adjusting in editing, which we'll talk about in a minute, but your goal is to get it as close as possible, because when you edit, that kind of takes out some of the naturalness of it. You want it to be, you just want it to be as natural as possible. So, now that we know a little bit about light, let's talk about actually taking the photo. First thing you need to do is look at the lens on your phone. Is it clean? We put our phones in our pockets, in our purses, we carry them around, they get fingerprints on them, our kids handle them. So take a look, and if your lens is smudgy or dusty, wipe it with a soft cloth. You don't want little smudgies on your photos of your art. So clean your lens, and then decide where you're going to take your picture and look around at your background. You don't want any distractions in your background. If you're taking your photo in the house, maybe you have a place set up, especially if it's a small piece, where you're going to stage it and make it, look like it is living in that spot with some flowers around it, or, some nice surroundings. Take a look. Make sure there's not anything in that background that you don't want. If you're taking a picture on your dining room table because you have beautiful light coming in your window, make sure your breakfast dishes are not in the background of your photo. So just take a look and see what's going to show up in that photo. Or take a quick shot and look at it in your viewfinder, because often you see things in the viewfinder that you didn't notice in real life. If you're shooting outside, which is what I do, you want to look around. Most of the time, I only put my art in the photo, and we'll talk about setting that up in a second. But sometimes I want to use my beautiful surroundings here as a backdrop. So I need to take a look around and make sure my deck furniture isn't in the picture, or a boat on the lake, or my trash can, or whatever. You just want to take a look at your surroundings because you don't want anything that's going to distract from your art. So there's a couple of different ways you can set up your photo. You can stage it, like I just mentioned, in your house, on a shelf, a desk, a table, whatever, on the wall. Or you can do what's called a flat lay, where you lay your painting flat on your desk or table, and then you have some nice little things around it, like maybe some of your art tools, paintbrushes, colored pencils, whatever you might want to include in the photo. So that kind of accentuates, or adds a little more interest to the photo. Or maybe you just want the art in the photo, which is typically what I do. If I want mine staged, I usually use an app. One of them is the ArtStage app. Art Rooms is another one. So I typically just put my art in the photo. So let's say you're going to do that. Lay it on the ground. That's what I do outside. Try to square it up. Get it as centered and as straight in your viewfinder as you can. Same thing regardless of where you're shooting. And then take your photo. Take a look at it. See how it looks. Maybe you want to take a couple more. So then you may want to just crop it in a little bit, get it. Your crop tool is very helpful. You can change the way a picture looks tremendously just by how you crop it. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. So assuming your picture looks the way you want it to look, you like your composition, you're good with it, your lighting's good. I usually do a few little edits in my phone just to really make it look its best online. When you post a photo online, it kind of flattens things and it doesn't show our art in the best way. So you want it to look as good as it possibly can, but you also want it to look as accurate as it possibly can. You don't want to bump up the saturation and make it look all crazy. You want it to look like as close to how it looks in real life as possible. So let's take a look at how we can do that using the edit feature in our iPhones in the camera app. I'm going to take a look at this photo and I'm going to show you how I would edit this. I took it outside. It's upside down for some reason. So I'm going to go to my edit and I'm going to go down to the bottom where the little crop sign is, and I'm going to hit that. And then up at the top it shows me a box with a rotating arrow. So I'm going to touch that. It turns it to the left one time, hit it again, turns it again. So now it's not squared up in the screen. So I'm going to go to the three controls at the bottom, and the one with a line going straight across, I'm going to touch that and hit my slider, and that just kind of straightens it up that way a little bit. Now I go back to, I don't have to go back to anything. Now I touch the corner of my crop box or the edge, and I'm just going to slide it up. And then I'm going to slide it down. And I'm just going to get only my painting. I don't want any of that background in there. Okay, now that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go down to the bottom to what looks like the little timer, and I'm going to touch that, and that brings up my editing controls. Now the first one is automatic, and you can try that. Sometimes that works pretty good. That really brightened it up. That raises up your exposure. So, but I'm going to show you how to do it without that. So touch that again to turn that off. First one is plus, that's your exposure. Brighten it up just a little bit. I feel like this one needs it. Sometimes it doesn't. Next one is brilliance, and so that just kind of adjusts your lighting. Play with that slider. It kind of adjusts your contrast, brings up your darks. So I'm going to slide this one over to the left till it looks like I think is closer to my actual painting. Then I'm going to come over to black point, and I usually bump that up a little bit because I feel like that just makes it sharper and it presents a little better when it's online. Now, I rarely mess with my saturation, and sometimes the vibrance. I'll show you that in a minute, but usually, well, depending on what your lighting looks like, you might need to adjust the warmth. So I'm going to show you, this looks a little warmer than my actual painting. So I'm going to slide it over to the right a little bit and see how it just kind of cools it down a little. That looks closer to what my actual painting looks like. Now, if you go over to vibrance, sometimes I do that when I'm posting online because I feel like when you put them online, it kind of dulls things and flattens them. So bump up the vibrance just a tiny bit. Now, when I look at that, I feel like that is a pretty accurate representation of my actual painting. So I'm just going to hit done. And now it's ready to post online. I do want to mention that once you have edited a photo and it saves the new photo with the edits, it doesn't save a copy. It's the original photo that you edited. Unless you take a screenshot of it and edit that, then that saves your original. But you can always go back into edit again, and it'll show you at the bottom a little red word that says revert. If you tap that, it'll give you the option to revert to your original photo. So, and as long as it is saved in your photos, you always have that option. So you haven't lost your original. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, if you feel like you want to keep your original, you can always take a screenshot and edit the screenshot, and then you'll have your original. If you have any questions about any of these editing features, drop it in the comments, or you can always message me on Instagram or Facebook. But my best advice is just play around with it. Take some photos, practice editing, try those sliders, try all the different editing features and see what you get. But keep in mind, your goal is to make your art look online as close to it does in real life as possible. You want an accurate representation of your art. Now, if you want to play around and do some funky things with it, sure, do that. I mean, that's fun too. But I feel like when we're posting our art on social media, especially if we're posting for sale, it needs to be as close to the original as possible. I told you that I was going to share my little system for organizing and keeping track of photos in my phone. If you have followed me very long, you've probably seen me post asking for ideas for various kinds of organization because it doesn't come easily to me, and I'm always trying to find a system for something or another. I don't catalog all my art and keep track of everything like maybe I should, but what I do, because I take pictures of everything, because I put it on my website or I post it on social media, I have found a way to organize it in my phone and keep track of what I have for the most part and what I have sold for the most part when I remember to keep things updated. The struggle is real, believe me. So here's what I do. In your phone, in your Photos app, you have the option to create albums. And in an iPhone, if you click down at the bottom of your photo app, albums is one of the options, and it'll show you your recents, and then it gives you some albums that they think you might want to use. But you can create new albums, and I use that to organize my photos. I have an album for art created for each year. So 2022 paintings. And anytime I remember, I try really hard, and sometimes I just go back and look and make sure. But anyway, when I take photos of a new painting, I put it in that album. When I have sold it, then I put it in the art sold album for each year. You can also have special collections. Like I have an album for my pet paintings, so they're right there and I can easily find them. If I'm working on pieces for a show or an exhibit, or to go to a place to sell them, I can put those photos in an album. And I'm going to show you how to create albums and how to put your photos in those albums. I'm in the Photos app on my iPhone, and I'm going to show you how to create an album and add photos to it. So at the bottom of your screen on the far left is the little box with the arrow that shows you, that's the upload, download symbol. I don't know what you call it. Tap on that. It brings up your options. So you scroll down to Add to Album. Then at the very top, New Album pops up. So tap that, give it a name. Let's say we'll call this album Florals. Save it. And then your photo automatically went into that album. Now, take a look. If I wanted to add it to an album that I'd already created, let's say I want to add this to my 2022 paintings, just tap it and in it goes. It's that simple. If you want to remove albums that you have created and you no longer want, all you need to do is go to the Albums section of your photo app. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the words See All. Tap that and it shows you all of your albums. In the upper right now, you'll see the word Edit. Tap that and each one has a little red minus sign. So tap the minus and it will ask you if you want to delete the album. It does not delete the photo. It only deletes that album. Your photo is still saved in its original place. Tap delete and it's gone. Now, if I want to rearrange my albums, all I do is, it's just like you're rearranging your icons on your desktop. Press and hold and I can move it and I can rearrange them however I want them. And when you're finished, click Done. There you go. My simple system for sort of keeping myself organized. Anything that I can do on my phone as opposed to going to my computer, I will absolutely do it. It's so much simpler. I like having everything right there in my hand, and it's less for me to keep track of, and that really works for me. I hope this has been helpful. If you know someone else that you think might benefit from it, please feel free to share it with them. If you enjoyed it, hit that thumbs up little button down there because that lets YouTube know that I'm putting good content out here and they'll show it to more people. Any questions at all, shoot me an email, message on Instagram or Facebook, or comment here and I'll be happy to try to help you. Thank you guys for watching and have a great day.